In a surprise move, the West Virginia Mountaineers and Coach Rod go out and get another wide receiver out of the transfer portal, this time a 1,000-yard receiver, an all-conference receiver from Idaho State named Jeff Weimer. We're going to talk about Jeff Weimer in this live edition of Couz's Corner. I appreciate you guys tuning into the show. We're going to talk about his stats. We're going to talk about his PFF grades, and I'm just going to give you my overall thoughts on what I think about this get for the Mountaineers. And we're going to do that in this live show, which is brought to you by Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner, and BetUS Online. So stick around, and we'll talk about it. I'll give you my thoughts on Jeff Weimer right after these words from one of those sponsors. Since 1931, the attorneys at Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident, are fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. What is up, and welcome into this live edition of Couz's Corner. Come on in, belly yourself up to the bar. Let me pour you out this shot of top-shelf college football news and analysis, this time centered around West Virginia. And if you are new here, you have landed yourself at Couz's Corner. Not only is it the home of top-shelf content, but it's also where in-depth analysis and fan passion collide, because I am a fan of West Virginia. I am a fan of the Big 12, and I bring my passion along with the analysis that I try to give, and I try my best to be objective. But let's go ahead and talk about Jeff Weimer. Thank you all for joining the show, those of you who have joined and left comments. This is kind of an unannounced pop-up live stream. It's been a very busy day here at the Walker House. Have a lot more things to do, but I wanted to get this show in. Jeff Weimer. Now, I did not see this coming. I did not see Coach Rod and his staff going out to get any more receivers out of the portal. I thought they were done. Heck, I thought they were done overall in this portal window, in this, the fall portal. I mean, they brought in, 30 guys? I figured that was about all they were going to bring in, but no, Jeff Weimer is added to the list. Now, when you first look, he's from Idaho State, played in the Big Sky Conference, which is an FCS conference, an FCS school. And I know that doesn't excite a lot of people. But I'm going to go over his stats, talk about how good he was at that level. He does also have some experience playing at a higher level. He also has experience at the JUCO level, which actually is what makes him eligible for this year because of the rule where JUCOs are getting one extra year of eligibility. And I'm going to talk about what I saw in the few highlights I was able to find on this young man on the internet. So let's go ahead and dig in and look at his stats first. Again, he was a first-team all-conference player in the Big Sky Conference for Idaho State. He caught 75 passes for 1,018 yards, 6 touchdowns, and averaged 13.6 yards per catch. And what I find about really interesting about this young man is he spent a year at UNLV as well. So he's played at the G5 level. And in his 1 year at UNLV, which was in 2022, let's take a look at his stats there. He caught 26 balls for 278 yards and a touchdown, 10.7 yards per catch. Now, his PFF grades, when you look at his PFF grades, they actually were better last year for Idaho State. When you look at his PFF grades, he has 69.7 overall grade, which is starter level basically. 70.6 receiving grade, though, which is even better than that. So he had a really good grade as a receiver. What I really like about him is his drops. He was targeted 122 times. Only had 4 drops. So I think that's pretty good. 122 targets, and he had 75 receptions on 122 targets. That's also pretty darn good with only 4 drop passes. Another thing I found interesting when digging into his stats last night, his PFF numbers, he had 8 contested catches, which doesn't sound like a lot. But he was only targeted. He only had 18 contested targets, which means 18 of his 122 targets, he had a man on him, and it was a contested catch or a contested target. He made 8 of those catches. And on the surface, that might not sound good. You might think, well, Couz, why are more of those targets not contested? Well, in my opinion, to me, My gut feeling is it's because he's open. He's open most of the time. It's not going to be a contested target or a contested catch if you're open. So if he was targeted 122 times and only 18 of those were contested, that tells me he was open most of those times. And I know what some of you may be thinking, but Couz, those are probably screen passes. Well, they're not screen passes. The majority of his plays were made down the field, 10 plus yards down the field. And as a matter of fact, his PFF grades are much, much higher as he gets into those deeper patterns, those deeper routes down the field. He is a downfield receiver. Rich Rod has went out and got him a downfield receiver who can catch the ball in traffic if he needs to. He just apparently doesn't have to a lot. He has great body control. From the highlights I watched, he can go up and get the ball in the air. He can high point the football. He can, like I said, control his body to make the catch. He has really good hands. Go check out his highlights. He makes a one-handed grab in the end zone on a deep go route or maybe a back corner route. I couldn't really tell. Looked to me like he was kind of angling towards the back corner of the end zone there. But he pulls in a one-handed catch. One highlight, he goes up and grabs the ball out of the air with two defenders around him and pulls it in. He has good size. He's 6'2", weighs 204 pounds, so he's a big body receiver. He's going to play. He spent almost his entire career playing on the out, at least last year at Idaho State, playing on the outside. Very, very few snaps in the slot. Majority of his snaps are on the outside. So he's going to come in as a wideout. He's going to play the wideout position. He's going to compete for that spot with guys like Cam Vaughn, with, Jaden Bray, who's still on campus. Maybe Dom Collins if he decides, unless they move him into the slot. Brandon Raymond. The other receivers that Coach Rod, Cyrus Traw. Go along with some of the other receivers he picked up as well in the portal. Bowie from Martinsburg High School. So, and I know I'm leaving some people out, but you get my point. Coach Rod's bringing in enough people. There's going to be competition for every position on the football field. And that's good because it's going to make everybody better. It will weed out the guys who don't want to compete, or it may weed out the guys who may just not be ready to play for Rich Rod, or may not be ready to play this year, or just may not be, good enough right now. I mean, that's what this boils down to. And with Weimer coming in, what makes me think that this guy has a chance to come in and be a day one starter is he was brought in so late in the process. I would again, I have no sources telling me this. This is just my gut feeling. For him to be added so late. Now, he did visit, I think it was around the 15th or 16th of January. So he did visit several days ago. But to me, for this commitment to happen so late in the process, it makes me wonder if they felt like he was such a good player that they needed to get him in, even though they may not need any more bodies at that position. That's just my feeling. But again, if you go find his highlights, there's not a ton of them. But if you find his highlights, you can see he's got the ability to play receiver, in my opinion. Now, how will it translate to the Power 4 level? Yet to be determined, like I said in previous videos. Out of 31 transfers, a large portion of them will not pan out and will not be able to make it or succeed at West Virginia. And when I say succeed, I mean may not see the field a lot or may not play a lot, may be a bust, whatever you want to call it. I think Jeff Weimer, though, has the potential to be one of those guys who is really, really good, who contributes, who catches 20, 30 balls for West Virginia, if not more. It's very rare that a receiver in Rich Rod's offense catches more than 40 balls, 30, 40 balls. But I think he has the opportunity to do it. You put him on one side, you put Cam Vaughn on the other, or maybe you put Jaden Bray in with him, or maybe you put Dom Collins in, or Brandon Raymond, or whoever. Just name a receiver. Put those guys in the game with him. One on, you have two great wideouts. You have one or two guys that are good in the slot. They brought in some good blocking tight ends to help. Now, the one area that I would like to see him improve in is his run blocking. When you look at his PFF run blocking grades, they're not great. His run blocking grade in 2024 playing for Idaho State was only 52.3. So he's going to have to improve in the run blocking aspect of his game to help spring some big runs in Rich Rod's run-heavy offense. Now, I will say, though, in 2022 when he played at UNLV, his run blocking grade was higher. It was 66.3. So he did do better blocking in the run game in 22. His overall grades in 22, for those of you who are wondering, he was targeted 43 times in 2022, had 26 receptions, 278 yards, like I mentioned, with the one touchdown. He had a 61 overall offensive grade, a 60 receiving grade, 36.9 drop grade, which I don't really know how they calculate that anyway. He dropped more passes. He dropped more passes on less targets and less receptions in 22, so that's probably the reason for that low grade. But again, he improved on that at Idaho State. He had a run blocking grade of, like I said, 66.3 in 22 compared to 52.3 in 2024. So he did improve. So he can run block is my point here. He's not bad. He's not necessarily bad at run blocking. He just didn't have a great season at it last year. But I do think he can do it if needed. But again, I think this is a good get. You can't have too many bodies in the receiver room, in my opinion. It's going to create competition. It's going to make everybody better. And you've got someone who can come in my opinion, and contribute in year one. He has to. It's his only year. He only has 1 year of eligibility remaining. Now, what happened between the 22 and 24 seasons, I'm not 100% sure. I need to go back and do some more research. But I do know he only played 1 year at Idaho State. I don't know if he got injured at UNLV or if he went from UNLV to JUCO. I don't know. I'm sure it's somewhere out there on the interwebs where we can find that out. But yeah, I really think that this is a good pickup. Matter of fact, I'm going to look it up right now because I don't like not knowing that. And by the way, he's considered a 3-star. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, by the way. Let me see if I can find that. I do know. Let me see. Maybe you guys can answer that in the comments. Let's see. Let me see what you guys are having to say. Let me get to the comments here. Sam Ventura says Jerry Rice wasn't very fast, but was an elite route running and got open that way. Yes, Sam, that's a great point. And this guy's not a blazing. He doesn't have blazing speed. He reminds me a little bit, and I'm not going to say he'll ever be as good as David Seals, but he kind of reminds me of that type of receiver. He's tall. He has really good body control. He can get the ball in traffic if needed. And he's a really good route runner and has good hands. He can make tough catches. You know, David Seals didn't have blazing speed. He was fast enough, but he wasn't blazing fast either. West Virginia hasn't really had a blazing fast receiver since, Bryce Ford Wheaton had that ability. He had great straight line speed. He just wasn't as good a route runner as some of the other guys. But I was going to say since Tavon, but I don't think that's accurate. But yeah, you don't have to be blazing fast. If you can run routes well and you have good hands and you can use your body well, you can overcome a slower 40 time. Daniel Gigax says, having talent is great. Will all the talent play as a team? A little agricultural in Texas, having talent on paper looks nice, but we need to coach them up. Absolutely, Daniel. I totally agree. And I'm going to trust. We have to trust that Rich Rod and his staff can do that. We've seen them do it in the past. Hopefully they can continue to do it now. What's up, Raven? Thanks for joining. Kenny Evans in the house says, how will he end up on depth chart? My opinion, Kenny, I haven't done an in-depth dive on the depth chart, but I'm going to say he'll be in the at least in the 2 deep on the depth chart at worst. Not ready to put him as a starter just yet, but I do think he'll make the 2 deep. Sam Ventura says that the Ohio State receiver confirmed our wide receiver room is shaping up really nice. What Ohio State receiver are you referring to? Chris Henry Jr. If that's so, he's not until the 2026 class. What's up, Mile High Hokey? Thank you for watching on X. By the way, for those of you watching on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, once the show's over, please come over and check out my YouTube channel. If you haven't, please subscribe over there. Country roads are leading me to 10K, and I need your help to get there. So please sub me up over there and make sure you, whether you're watching it on X or on YouTube, wherever, whether it's live or on a replay, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps me, helps that algorithm and helps me get seen by more people. We've got King Dub 8 in the house. It's Not Okay Golf in the house. Jacob Yoho, Brian Tucker. I mentioned Daniel Gigax already. We have Raven Grady, I mentioned. Don't know any news on Chris Henry Jr. yet, Brian. I do know that West Virginia has continued to recruit him. And I do feel like West Virginia has a chance at Chris Henry Jr., but I'm not ready to say that that he's coming to West Virginia yet. I don't feel confident in that yet. And Daniel, like Daniel says, a lot of former Mountaineers are talking to him. I'm sure Pac-Man is talking to him and has explained to him what Coach Rod is like. But at the same time, Pac-Man has been clear he's going to let Chris Henry Jr. make his own decision. He's not going to try to force him to go to West Virginia. He wants him to go to the school that will make him the happiest. But I'm sure he understands Pac-Man's passion towards West Virginia, and I'm sure that will, play a role in it. Bagman, what's up? The resident Oklahoma fan. Thank you for joining the show. Caleb 31 says, my bet is we're passing more this year since getting all these wide receivers. Kevin Vincent in the house. Yeah, I don't know, Kevin. YouTube is funny about that stuff sometimes. It doesn't always work perfect. You're not the only person who's told me that. Yeah, you do your part. You turn on notifications for this, for YouTube, and you turn on notifications for, on your phone as well. Make sure you turn them on your phone, and then also turn them on my channel. Outside of that, man, that's about all you can do. If you're not getting notified, that's on YouTube at that point, I guess. But I appreciate you, man. Unfortunately, there's some things that we just can't control. You or me, either one. Daniel Gigak says James Jett won an Olympic medal for the 4x100 relay. He might have been the fastest receiver we ever had. Daniel, it's definitely probably between him. I'd love to know what his 40 time was if they ever did the 40 back then. But I would say he has to be up there. It would be him. I would say Tavon has to be up there. I'll be honest with you. Dom Collins, if he ever gets to see the field, I think he could be up there because he's, like I said, he was running a sub 4.3 camps at West Virginia, Virginia Tech, and other places. 3 different camps I know of, he ran a sub 4.3 40. So that's got to be up there. Tavon was running sub 4.3 40s at the combine. So, and Dom's was already doing it in high school, senior in high school. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Dom Collins is as good as Tavon Austin. I'm just talking about as far as straight line speed, straight up speed. I've never seen a player that has the wiggle, the ability to make people miss like Tavon Austin does. And I don't think there's anybody on this roster that has that ability, just to be honest with you. Don't know that we'll ever see anybody like Tavon Austin and his ability to make people miss. It was unbelievable. Punt returner, kick returner. Kenny, that's a good question. I think Rodney Gallagher has a legit chance to be that guy. I think Dom Collins might have a chance to be that guy. He did it in high school. I wouldn't count out, any of these receivers or heck, even some of the DBs on this roster. I wouldn't count any of them out as guys who could possibly win that job. I don't know anything about, I don't know how many of these guys did it in high school, but I do know Dom Collins did it because I watched him do it with my own eyes. So I would say, Rodney Gallagher, Dom Collins, basically anybody. And now returning punts is something that not just anybody can do. So it'll be interesting to see. And, Preston Fox was extremely reliable back there. It'll be interesting to see who's able to come in and fill his shoes at that spot. Let's see. The team is running out nicely. Who are you talking about, Sam, the Ohio State receiver? Because I'm not aware of another Ohio State receiver. But again, I've been kind of out of loop all day today, been busy. James Jett supposedly, Rex Flower says James Jett supposedly ran a 4.21 and a 4.19 when I was at WVU. Wow. That's fast. That would definitely be the fastest ever for sure that I know of anyway. Caleb 31 says, as long as Pac-Man's in his ear, we got a great chance because he wants to follow his dad's legacy, and that's his dream. That's a great point, Caleb. Great point. But yeah, he's, like I said, this kid, this Weimer, I shouldn't call him a kid. He's a grown man. But Weimer is not going to be a blazing fast guy. He's going to be somebody who's going to rely on his body control. He's going to rely on his route running ability. Like I said, he was open on all but out of 122 targets, he was open on all but 18 of them. And most of those were downfield. They weren't throwing him screen passes. Jeremiah Smith, that was Sam. If you saw the same post I did, it was a troll, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't think it was true, man. Unfortunately, I wished it was, but I think that was a troll job or a spoof job, whatever you want to call it. Bagman says, y'all are not flipping a receiver committed to Ohio State. Well, There's a unique circumstance, Bagmen, here in this one. You're probably right, first off. I'm not saying you're wrong. But there's a unique circumstance here. Chris Henry Jr., the son of Chris Henry Sr., who's unfortunately passed away a few years ago. You may remember him. He played for the Cincinnati Bengals, was at West Virginia back before that under the Rich Rod era, the previous, the last Rich Rod era. Well, after Chris Henry passed away, Pac-Man Jones, who's also a West Virginia alum and now is a huge supporter of the school as far as NIL and whatnot, has been raising Chris Henry Jr. and his siblings. Pac-Man was apparently his godparent, so he has now been raising them as his own. So West Virginia has an inside connection there. He's a legacy kid. His biological dad and the dad who raised him both played at West Virginia. Both went to the NFL. Both played for Rich Rodriguez. Both love Rich Rodriguez. So there is a chance that, this special circumstance here, I would say we do have a chance. Now, if he had no connection to West Virginia, I would say you're probably right. But I actually think we have a legit chance on this one. But it's a fair comment. Absolutely. K-Pro says there's only one. Any word on Pat White being announced yet for position? I have not seen that announcement, Kevin. I don't think they've made that public yet, but I'm sure they will hopefully very soon. He does have a younger brother, Caleb. Absolutely right. Kenny Evans, thank you for who's a VIP member, says, who are players we going after in portal that hasn't committed yet? I honestly don't know. I've heard Mountaineer Paul mention on his show that there are some silent commits. I don't know who those guys are. This may have been one of those he was talking about. I don't know. So there may be one or two more. I would love to see him go after. There's been 2 or 3 offensive linemen from Notre Dame enter the portal. I would love to see him try to get one of those guys, or if not all of them. Don't see it happening, but I'd like to see him at least try. Shoot your shot, right? I would love to see that. So hopefully they're going. I would like to see another offensive lineman or two come into the fold because I think they need as much depth there as possible after losing everybody, all the starters, and even a couple backups. We've lost, I think, 7 players total off the offensive line due to graduation and or the transfer portal. So I'd love to see him go out and get some more bodies there. But to answer your question, Kenny, I honestly have no idea. I'm not able to track it as closely as I would like to. Some of the other guys are able, do a better job of doing it than I do. So, and by the way, I do plan on trying, hopefully tonight, for those of you who are going to be watching the West Virginia basketball game, I'm hoping to do a live post-game reaction show over on my Hoops from the Hills channel after that's over. If you want to check it out, I'm not making any promises, but I'm definitely going to try. I was hoping to do a preview video. I actually got the notes for it ready, did the research, but due to circumstances here at my house today, some work I've had to do here or help do here, I have not been able to do that. So, but I did want to get one out here on this football commitment of Jeff Weimer. And I've got some other stuff in the pipeline for you guys related to the Big 12, TV ratings, the new schools that came into the pack. I've got some stuff on them I want to talk about. Kenny, no, there is not any news. And there's actually something interesting on that. It's a great question. Kenny says, any news on any Oklahoma players following Allie? Here's something interesting on that. I found out that, and I did get this information off the 24/7 board for those who want to get pissed at me. But apparently, and I don't know all the details, you'd have to go check it out for yourself. Apparently there was some language in Zach Alley's contract with Oklahoma that he wasn't allowed to do that. So I'm sure there are ways around that, but it would have been very tough for him to have contact with anybody. So again, there was contract language. Oklahoma did something pretty smart there. They made sure if he ever left, he didn't try to take players with him. I would like to see West Virginia do that more often if they haven't already started. Because we've seen that happen before, right? West Virginia's actually benefited from that in the past. Remember when Jamal Adai came to West Virginia, he brought those 2 really talented players from Arizona with him? Well, Fields and Tony Fields, and there was another one whose name has escaped me. But yeah, he brought two really talented players from Arizona with him. And then we've also, when he left and went to Miami, we had two players follow him to Miami. So, it goes both ways, but I do think it's smart for coaches, for administrations to put that in the contract. Sam Ventura says, if I heard correctly, Rich Rod filled the majority of the roster on Jack State during the spring, so I expect a lot more roster moves. Yes, that is true. Here's what's probably going to happen is majority of his players he had like 50-some transfers or 60, some gargantuan number there, and the majority of those came on in the spring portal window, and they still went out and won a conference title. So that's pretty impressive if you ask me. But what's probably going to happen, here's what I envision happening in the spring. There are going to be some guys, whether incoming freshmen or whether it be leftovers from, and I say leftovers, I don't mean that in a negative way, but guys who were here under Coach Brown who stayed on. Some of those players, once they get through a spring camp, an off-season workout, a spring camp with Coach Rod, they're going to realize, you know what? I'm not sure if this is the place for me. I may need to go somewhere else, A, where I may be able to get more playing time, or B, this is just a better fit for me culturally. There's going to be some of that happen more than likely. But you'll see him use the portal to replace some of those guys. And then also what's going to happen, that goes both ways. The coaching staff may watch these guys go through workouts, spring practice, and say, you know what? I don't think this guy's really what we're looking for here at West Virginia, whether it be from a skill perspective, a size perspective, a speed perspective, a culture, whatever. And they might sit down with the young man and say, listen, it would be better off for you if you go transfer, because I just don't think we have a spot for you here anymore. That happens, guys. That is part of college football now. So either of those scenarios could take place. And heck, you could even see guys that I'm not sure if guys he's bringing in now are allowed to transfer again in the spring, but it would be mainly for players who came to West Virginia to play for Coach Brown and his staff, or even incoming freshmen for that matter. But I do expect more moves in the spring. Absolutely, Sam. You make a great point. Bagman says he hasn't heard any buzz of any of our players entering the portal to West Virginia. Lewis Carter was a possibility, but he went to UCF instead. Yeah, and he was one that I was hoping West Virginia could get. And then I saw that and of course, a lot of Oklahoma fans, I think, were kind of assuming that was going to happen. But, really, Zach Alley was only at Oklahoma for a year, and I don't think he recruited any of the players on the roster. So I'm not sure how much of a connection he even had with the players. I mean, he coached them up, obviously, and got to know them, but I'm not sure he had enough time to really form a really strong bond with those guys. No news on Deion just yet, Kenny. Now, as far as I know, I mean, the Raiders have found their coach with Pete Carroll. The Cowboys hired Brian Schottenheimer to be head coach, so it looks like Deion's staying at Colorado for now. I don't know, Eric, if their basketball teams over their illnesses or not. I have not heard anything today on that, and we probably won't, to be honest, unless it's right before game time. Caleb says that's good because that'll be a group of guys experienced playing together and also running the exact same offense. Very true. Very true. Well, listen, this is going to be a short live stream today, folks. I have a lot going on here at the house, but I did want to get on here and do a quick show and give you my thoughts on Jeff Weimer, the wide receiver from Idaho State. I would appreciate it if you would show my sponsor some love. If you need a medical malpractice or personal injury attorney in West Virginia or Virginia, please check out Katz, Counter, Stone Street, and Buckner, 304-999-HURT, or yourloggeryourvoice.com. And if you want to place a bet online, go to BetUS and do that. Right now, they're offering a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% on your next two deposits, up to $20,000 with promo code YouTube150 at checkout. So make sure you take advantage of that deal today. Thank both of them for helping me keep the lights on. K-Pro says, what's your way too early predictions for wins next season? I haven't looked at the schedule deep enough yet, but I'm just going to, just off the top of my head, 6-6, 7-5, somewhere in that range. I will do a more exact prediction once I see the schedule release and as we get closer to the season. But just to be realistic and try to be objective, 6-6 or 7-5, you've got a new roster, new coaching staff, new culture being built here. So I'm not going to I don't want to get my expectations too high. I just don't know that that's realistic. So I think we're going to have a bowl team, basically. All right. Yeah, we will see RR versus Dion, Kenny. That's exactly right, and it will take place in Morgantown as far as I know. I think Colorado's coming to Morgantown, so that should be exciting. Maybe the game will actually be on network television, right? Anyway, thank you guys and gals for tuning into the show. I appreciate everything. I appreciate all the support. For those of you watching on the replay, like it, please. For those of you watching live, like it, please, on your way out. It really helps. Make sure you subscribe at Couz's Corner if you haven't. Also, make sure you subscribe to Hoops from the Hills, where you get your West Virginia basketball fix as well. Appreciate each and every one of you. Hope the rest of your day or night is top shelf. And don't forget, as always, I want to remind you to cue Country Roads, baby.